Demonstrate how and when to repot your Phalaenopsis orchid. So you bought this for a holiday or someone gave it to you as a gift and it had beautiful spikes of flowers. They lasted a couple months. They finally died off and your plant is still good and healthy, but the roots are starting to grow out of the pot. The flowers are gone. It's time to repot this orchid. You can see the roots busting through this pot here. It's stuffed full. There's no place else to grow. So the first thing we did is we cut the stem down where the flowers were. We cut it just above the first node. That node there is where next year's growth will come from. Same thing on this side, it's a little lower. So just about 3/4 of an inch above that first node, we cut those spikes off. If you cut them too high, they're going to be long and spindly next year, so cut it down low above the first node. These roots are growing out of the pot. It's time to repot that. This comes in a 4-inch pot. You can see it's full. We're going to update that to a 6-inch pot. This is an orchid pot from OrchidSupply.com. Lots of aeration. The roots love this. They got air to breathe. This is a clear orchid pot to grow in. We're also using the potting mix from OrchidSupply.com. This is their Phalaenopsis mix. You can see it's got Rexius bark, coconut husk, New Zealand AAA sphagnum, some hydrox. It's a good mix of aerated product. It gives the roots plenty of room to breathe, but yet it holds moisture. Just the right mix for this moth orchid. So the first thing we'll do is pull this out of the pot. We're going to try to repot right at the crown level and put these roots down in the new mix as much as possible. They're climbing out of here because they're not getting enough fresh air and this soil is getting old. So we'll very carefully pull that pot out. We're going to break apart the bark that's in there. You can see most of the roots are around the outside. You can see inside. This plant is good and healthy. This is the right time to repot this. It's been a few weeks since it's done flowering, and it's going to go into a rest period, and these roots will take off in a new potting medium. In a couple months we'll have some new flowers again. Anytime you see a dead root like this, we're going to cut that off. These roots are good and healthy. We'll leave those. So that's ready to be repotted. This potting mix has been soaking overnight. Make sure you soak all your mix at least 3 or 4 hours, preferably overnight, because that bark is dry. It's been heat treated and it would take moisture out of the roots. So I've soaked that overnight. Now I'm going to put this in the pot. I'm piling it up like a peak in the middle because of that hole in the roots. So we'll get that piled up high, stick this over that, down in there. Looks like I got a little too much. Give that a little twisting motion to get those roots down in there. Then carefully put the bark mix around the outside. You want to kind of shake it and pack it so it gets down in between there. Be careful not to damage the roots. I did water this plant thoroughly before we did this, so the roots are moist and tender. You don't want them to be dry and brittle. They do get bent around a little bit. Carefully pack that around lightly. The roots will fill the space. It is not packed tight. You want to get the new mix down in the holes, but you're not packing it too firmly. Remember, these roots like lots of aeration, so they will fill that space as they grow. And now in this bigger pot, they've got a lot more room to grow. So with that, this plant is ready. I'll give it a good soaking in the sink. Rinse all that loose dirt off. And those roots are going to love that new mix. You can see now there's plenty of potting soil around there. And the roots have lots of room to grow. This is going to be a good, healthy plant. We planted it right at the level of the crown here. So this plant will take off. We'll get new spikes next spring. When you water this every other time, we recommend Orchid fertilizer. I like this Orchid Pro product from Dynagrow, just a half a teaspoon per 1 gallon. Do this every 2 weeks. Water it every week, soak it good under the kitchen sink, then let it dry out, and this plant will take off and grow healthy for another year.